said to withdraw, causing the energy source surrounding the two spheres to seem to be entwined with each other. The system reports the current number of imprisoned souls as 0/100. Dae-sung picked up the glowing purple ball and suddenly crushed it in his palm. The system immediately appeared notifying that the soul prison was being absorbed. Having achieved his goal, he decided to return, but suddenly the remaining ball turned yellow. Staring at it, he didn't understand what the hell was going on. The system displayed a terrifying warning from the monsters as the fierce aura flowed from the sphere. They urgently begged him to be absolutely cautious. But he is a supreme being. He has no obligation to listen to them. So he took back the orb. The light flared up, blinding his eyes. Then it suddenly entered his hand, creating a strange mark on his hand. That source of energy gradually extinguished, leaving behind a circular ring of fire. Immediately after that, the notice board immediately appeared in front of him while he still did not understand what happened. Then faintly appeared the words, "Mission completed previously, 1/3. Yet he thought there was some kind of nice reward. But he didn't expect it to be some silly task that took time to look forward to. Having finished his work, he sent the quail back to the real world by summoning a space portal. Just a few seconds later, he returned to the construction site in reality. But a new problem appeared. The body hidden under a green tarp and a pool of blood suddenly disappeared without a trace right in front of him. Seeing that, Dae-sung was quite worried and couldn't understand why such an incomprehensible incident happened. But then he still had to return home. As soon as he stepped inside, he saw his sister Jisoo standing at the door. Before she could be happy that her older sister could even come out to pick up her brother, she immediately berated him for coming home so late. Hearing that made me a bit nervous. But I didn't expect her to be this harsh when she grew up. He could only softly say sorry. After that, the girl just sighed and urged him to hurry in and eat so that her mother wouldn't wait too long. It's been a long time since Dae-sung felt like someone was waiting for him and a hot meal was prepared. At this time, a news report was being broadcast on TV about yesterday's gate crack incident, which was larger in scale than the previous one. But his mother immediately turned it off and suggested the whole family gather for dinner. Boredly munching on food, Dae-sung slowly walked around. The world changed a lot. Even monsters appeared on the news. Hearing that, the mother shyly walked over to him and explained that she was afraid he would be shocked, so she didn't dare to speak. Then she apologized for being a mother and not being able to help him. But Dae-sung didn't say anything and comfortably said it was okay. As long as the two of them survived without any injuries. He was very grateful, extremely surprised by his sudden growth. When her younger sister heard that, she turned away shyly. Dae-sung was also embarrassed by this strange atmosphere. Then he cleared his throat and asked if the two of them needed anything else, causing Jisoo to grumble as if he was going to buy you something nice. So the meal took place in an extremely warm atmosphere and filled with cheerful laughter. A moment later, he called Chan-ho at the office to inform him that he would be quiet for a while. Chan-ho thought Dae-sung was worried, so he went to practice for the upcoming extra test. But he only vaguely replied that he would lock himself in the mountain. Chan-ho listened and thought this guy was crazy. He just woke up, so his mind wasn't clear yet or anything. Now standing on the roof of a building, Dae-sung responded that he had discovered an insect, but it disappeared right before his eyes. Chan-ho heard that and had no idea what this guy was talking about. Isn't it strange that the assassin's body disappeared cleanly without leaving any trace? Calling Chan-ho mainly wanted to ask him to take care of his family during his absence. Dae-sung must bring the person behind everything to light. And Chan-ho is still thinking about what his best friend is planning to do. At the Crimson Demon at this time, a henchman was reporting the situation that the body had been neatly disposed of. But looking at the way he easily defeated a B-rank assassin like a newbie shows that he was no ordinary person. How does Big Brother plan to deal with him? Lee Soku casually replied that it was no problem. Lee Soku had already heard that that guy would participate in the hunter test this time. At that time, the opportunity to eliminate him will come without any effort. Right, Jinshin? Lee Soku looked at the person locked in a large experimental tank. Jinshin was extremely pleased and said, "Let's do it. I've been waiting for this day for a long time." Suddenly, the doctor standing to the side spoke in. Young Jinshen's A-level heart rate was very stable. Preparing to inject the solution. Lee Soku immediately gave a warning that it seemed like it would hurt. Jinshen was ready, but Jinshen seemed extremely excited and said he was ready since he set foot in this place. Extremely satisfied with that answer, Lee Soku signaled to proceed with the experiment immediately. After the doctor pressed the start button, a blue liquid was immediately transferred. It was injected directly into Jinshen's veins, causing the tendons in his hand to emerge like electric wires. At this time, the absorption level has reached 20% and the heart rate is still stable. When it reached 40%, Jinshen's face began to show signs of discomfort to the point of grinding his teeth. Then suddenly blue veins appeared on the corners of his eyes like that solution when the absorption level reached 55%. The body chart on the computer screen turns pink, signaling an overload warning. The doctor panicked and informed Lee Soku that Jinshen's body was exceeding the allowable limit. But he just coldly said to keep going, causing him to warn him that he might die from drug shock. Still unfazed by that, Lee Soku firmly affirmed that Jinshen would not go away that easily. Hearing that, the doctor could only be dumbfounded and watched as the infiltration level had reached 80. When it reached 90, Jinshen's eyes suddenly appeared a blue light and his body was in extreme pain. And finally reaching 100%, he let out a pitiful scream. Then the heart rate graph on the screen slides to a straight line. Jinshen was now also fainted with only blue veins showing. The whole laboratory was immersed in a heavy atmosphere different from a few minutes before. The doctor trembled and announced that his heart rate was 0. Jinshen was already dead for not listening to the doctor. But Lee Soku was very calm and signaled to shut up. You idiot, shut up and feel it. The hand in the test tube made very small movements, causing the doctor to quickly check fin A suddenly. The heartbeat appeared and signs of vitality returned. Surprising him, Jinshen's eyes suddenly widened with blue blood vessels appearing extremely clearly. The body chart also returned to normal, making the doctor completely unable to believe his eyes. He punched the test tube and broke it, stepped out and suddenly let out an extremely fierce roar. A devilish smile appeared on Lee Soku's dark lips. He is completely satisfied with this spectacular return of Jinshen. Ahihi, you almost disappointed me. Lee Soku was extremely excited and couldn't wait to see a good drama in the next 10 days. Elsewhere, Chan Ho just sent Dae-sung a message saying that in the upcoming test he can only use weapons and defenses provided by the association. After reading it, he immediately thought of using physical strength to replace weapons. Suddenly he picked up a tree branch from somewhere and wanted to verify some things first. Dae-sung used it to hit his arm a few times. And just as he predicted, the protective armor was completely invisible to the naked eye in the real world. So he could carry it with him anytime, anywhere without fear of being discovered. Now he had to try it with a weapon to see how it went. Summoning a space portal. Reaching out and rummaging around for a while, he pulled out a short sword. So the weapon can also be disguised. It sees this tree branch as a weapon. The system panel immediately appeared asking if he wanted to turn the sword into a recognized weapon. Of course, he immediately accepted, causing the knife to instantly transform into a tree branch. Now that the process was complete, it was certain that this technique would also work on weapons. So he could carry his beloved blade without worry. However, he still hesitated whether he should return to the Pantheon to get it. The Fire King's territory immediately appeared as an endless desert of burning red sand and dead trees. Dragging each heavy step forward, he was panting and out of breath, not expecting that one day he would have to return to this ghostly place. Suddenly, a series of desert wolves appeared in front of him, looking at him with hateful eyes. Dae-sung was completely moved by that scene without a trace of fear or worry. Just like that, people and animals stood motionless, staring at each other amid the scorching heat. The item contract quest happened on high difficulty with 337 Firelord points. He needs to destroy Orsian's minions patrolling the desert and collect soul stones. The time for the mission is 2 hours with the goal being a soul stone of 0.001. With a reward of 500 points and a 50% increase in fire and mirror odds. Some information about the wolves also appeared. They belonged to the beast species and were warriors trained by Orshan, the fifth apostle of heaven. He didn't expect that he would have the opportunity to test the sharpness of this shooting sword so early. Dae-sung immediately used a knife to cut his palm to activate soul magic. But at that moment, a desert wolf with a huge sword stood before him like a mountain. But he only gave a disdainful smile when facing them. "Why are our animals too small compared to your diet?" The enraged wolf immediately raised his sword and prepared to give him a powerful blow. However, Dae-sung was even faster than that, immediately swinging his knife and rushing forward, unleashing consecutive slashes on the monster's body, causing it to lose momentum and fall headfirst to the ground, easily handling one in the blink of an eye. Dae-sung was determined to destroy these minions, continuing to launch an attack with terrible destructive power. A series of wolves had their stomachs punctured. Continuously like that, he sent them one by one to disappear into the void. With one jump, he shot miles away, leaving the demons completely unable to react at the speed of light. Walking around like a skillful dancer dancing on the music temple was the roar of Ocean's henchmen, slashing them one by one. The number of enemy soldiers was now 33/100ths. He tightly grasped the burning short sword and looked coldly at the remaining soldiers. He suddenly said the two words, "million." At the same time, the desert wolves rushed in a state of madness and anger. Suddenly a set of blue-black claws appeared to block the attack of the leader. A green-headed wolf with a muscular body appeared at some point. And the others were also gradually coming out of the summoning portals. The blue-headed wolf easily crushed the head of the enemy demon with just one gentle squeeze. Witnessing such a scene scared the rest of the group to the point of sweating. The army of green wolves is still constantly emerging like mushrooms growing after the rain. After having enough troops, Dae-sung immediately ordered them to attack with full force. The blue wolves howled madly and ran straight towards the white wolves, who were also burning with fighting spirit. Both legions of monsters rushed at each other, stopping the monster battle and actually taking place. In the distance, holding a fire and lighting a cigarette, Dae-sung leisurely stood with his mouth in his mouth, drawing smoke that looked just as good as it did. But the next day he was coughing because he didn't know how to smoke and was just pretending to look cool. He immediately wondered how Chan-ho could live while smoking cigarettes all day. The war between wolves is still going on more and more fiercely and intensely. A blue wolf soul had just been split in half by a white wolf right before his eyes, then disappeared instantly, causing him and the demon to face each other. Even though the remaining enemy was full of weak men, he still could not relax his vigilance. The desert wolf passed through the fire and headed straight towards him, not realizing that there was a ray of blue light following it. Just as he swung the stick up to shoot down, he was hit by that strange ray of light. That is the blue wolf's arm being summoned to protect him. With the above mark hidden on their bodies, they will constantly regenerate. The desert wolf is pulled back with a terrible force and then swallowed by the blue wolf's soul. These are immortal warriors. Even death has no age. No matter the circumstances, they never falter or tremble before any enemy. The system displayed a notification that the soul stone target had reached 12 1,000th stones. Immediately activating his hands and feet to decide to join the battle to speed up the progress of completing the mission. Dae-sung had to quickly complete it in order to receive another mission. He stomped his foot to gain momentum and then shot into the air, leaving a huge explosion under his feet. It was as if a jet engine was attached to his body and he kept rushing, climbing at an unbelievable speed. With his current strength, he can easily slash hundreds of those beasts within 2 hours. When he reached a height high enough to observe the entire battle scene, he immediately stopped. Dae-sung smiled with excitement and still wanted to land in the middle of the enemy circle, thinking it would make him immediately turn around and fly straight down. The wolves were still enthusiastically fighting, completely unaware of an invisible pressure coming their way. He was right on top of them now. But none of them had discovered him yet. A white worm sensed something unusual and immediately looked up. Dae-sung was thundering down like a meteor, causing the entire army to suddenly stop fighting to admire. A bright light emitted immediately followed by a powerful collision. The maximum light emitted makes the entire surrounding space become white. A terrible earthquake erupted with a destructive force equal to that of an atomic bomb. At this time, at the headquarters of the Deep Gang in the real world, a test was taking place. A slash was aimed straight into the stomach of a D-class purple monster, turning the leg of a girl who had slashed vertically. A straight blow to the monster's neck killed it instantly. The system board appeared informing her that she had destroyed all the pre-programmed monsters in the machine. The stereoscopic image of the purple monster just now gradually disappeared, leaving behind the girl with the glowing sword. This panting person was Shin Cho-young, a member of the Worm Gang. Completing the system test also means praising her for doing very well and ending the hunting simulation process. The head of the Ice Soul Department immediately turned to ask the person standing next to him how he felt about Shin Cho-young. The bearded man with a muscular body just coldly spit out 2 words. This is the leader of the famous Ice Soul Gang. Watching him from afar, one could see that Shin Cho-young was often nervous and distracted during actual combat. But the head of the department immediately said that he did not have to worry. The training team was actively designing another program to overcome that problem, and it would take about 10 days to complete. The leader asked them to improve their training so that she could increase at least 2 more levels, so that she could have a chance to defeat that crazy dog. The head of the department pushed his glasses and asked again to make sure. Do you mean the crazy dog Zhang Jin-chun of the Red Devil clan? Exactly, he replied in an annoyed tone. It was because of that bastard that in the previous test no one scored higher than Shin Cho-young. But that's understandable because she's only at level B and that son of a bitch is at level A. The young leader's eyes sparkled with hatred. Gritting his teeth, no one could know what kind of defeatist tricks these crimson demons could pull off. Seeing that, the chief uncle immediately wondered if they were still planning to test that thing. Wasn't it true that after that accident, they were banned from using new recruits for a year? But the leader didn't think so at all. He thought they were secretly planning something even more terrible. I bet those losers are frantically preparing to get back what they lost that year. The head of the glasses-wearing department seemed quite worried that during the upcoming first test, there was a high possibility that Shin Cho-young and Zhang Jin-chun would compete against each other. Whistling his beard thoughtfully, the Ice Soul leader added another sentence. That is in the absence of the sudden participation of the monsters. Returning to the Demon King's territory, Dae-sung had finally killed all the desert wolves and was sitting on a pile of their corpses. After that, there were a series of love messages sent by the pandemonium monsters. From admiration for the power of the Supreme Being, then to being very afraid of him but also completely admiring and respecting him. Next are other great supporters. The Soulstone target has also reached 999 out of 1.000. Holding a cigarette in his hand and watching the system board constantly dancing in front of him, Dae-sung was angry because he couldn't turn it off. And the wolf he was resting on his butt groaned a few times. It looked both guilty and pitiful now compared to before. But Dae-sung didn't see that and immediately used a short knife to yell at him to shut up so his father could have better luck. He said and then stabbed the white wolf so quickly that he only had time to scream one last time and then leave. Its death caused him to collect 1.000 soulstones and complete the mission. The contract process is also starting to progress, receiving an additional 500 achievement points, with the current contract rate of Fire Din Mirror reaching 50%. The souls of the wolves turn into floating blue balls on the pile of corpses, then quickly flew back to where he sat, creating a powerful light source. Then they gathered into an extremely beautiful ball. The system board said that this was the soul seed, asking him to put it on the incense burner. While still smoking a cigarette, he wondered if there was anything around here that looked like that. Dae-sung reached towards the ball and thought about why now he had to go looking for it again. As soon as the hand grasped the soul ball, it immediately emitted an extremely abundant source of energy. A wall of stones suddenly stabbed straight from the ground, followed by a thick wall rumbling up. Finally, an entire altar with stone pillars on both sides appeared before him. Dae-sung couldn't help but admire the beauty of the sphere and the incense burner over there. The Pandaman monsters also quickly sent the message that he was wrong in being too hasty in thinking about everything. throwing his half-smoked cigarette into the pile of rubble. He stared intently at the system board reporting new missions. The item contract quest 2. 337 points of fire and sword is underway at high difficulty. He needed to bring the soul orb to the incense burner and prove his worth to the guards. There is no time limit. The goal is to simply receive recognition from the guards. With 2 rewards. 20.000 achievement points and blood guards. The level of the contract of fire and sword has also reached 100%. Dae-sung quickly placed the ball on the incense burner, causing it to suddenly light up. Not only that, the 2 large spheres on the stone pillars immediately emitted the same light. Then suddenly, behind the incense burner, something large and long burst out of the ground. Dae-sung immediately turned on alert mode to the highest level to prepare to deal with it. Finally, that thing completely appeared before his eyes. It was a giant divine snake with absolute overwhelming power radiating out in all directions. It looked intently at him with its big eyes but didn't seem to have any killing intent. But Armail Led is different. As long as the snake moves, he is ready to rush forward and skewer it to death at any time. The system had to appear again to introduce this big animal. It is a heavenly guard, classified in the Shinsu group of mystical beasts. This snake is Ocean's favorite monster. For those who don't remember, this guy is the 5th apostle of heaven. Dae-sung must answer the snake's questions to get the relic that is being guarded by the guards. After hearing this, Dae-sung froze and stood there staring at the eye status panel for a few seconds. He thought he would receive a fun and exciting mission. But now he has to participate. Who is smarter than a 5th grader? Looking at the snake planet again. He still didn't understand how annoying it was to play question and answer with this thing. Okay, if you like it, then I'm fine. The snake should quickly ask so I can understand. It immediately lowered its head close to where he was standing and then hissed some rustling noises. Something that didn't make any sense. This sugarcane grove dares to play. He hasn't spoken snake language yet. So who can answer? Dae-sung was so angry that he quickly shot a short knife right into the snake's eye to relieve the sting. They collapsed in pain. Its huge corpse lying on the ground, roaring in pain, but still not satisfied with that. His whole body emitted the utmost murderous aura. He was determined to must let him know who is the father. The system panel immediately announced that the blood import process had been activated. Dae-sung will turn into a demon, but when this technique is activated, a specific amount of health will be reduced for a specific period of time. The attack power of both skills and parameters will be reduced by 300%. Dae-sung gently waved his hand and threw the knife again but buffed it to greater strength than before. The sword pierced through the animal's eyes, causing it to turn angrily. When the sword was closed, its eyes flashed with a cold murderous aura as it looked towards the snake. Jumping up with great force, he was face to face with the snake crystal that was painfully swaying high above. Holding the knife tightly, Dae-sung growled like a ferocious beast. Don't see me as gentle and despise me. You're tired of living. Don't you say it and then stab it on the head very quickly. Making it scream wildly, but still not satisfied, he picked up the knife and rushed forward, determined to destroy this bastard's head. Dae-sung rode straight onto the head of the love snake and slammed down with a deadly blow. Having received so many dangerous blows that it writhed in agony and roared pitifully. Suddenly its head swelled abnormally and then exploded like a bubble, landing on the ground as light as a feather. Dae-sung walked proudly while the snake blood was pouring out like rain. The foul smell rising in the space made him want to vomit. But suddenly there was a noise behind him that made him turn his head to check. The snake's empty neck was glowing with blue light. Just looking at it, I knew it had regenerated. But he remained completely calm and didn't seem surprised at all. The blue flame spread around the snake's neck and hidden within it was something slimy floating up. Vaguely guessing what that fire was, Dae-sung immediately grabbed the sword so tightly that his hand was streaked with blood. Now the snake has returned with version 2.0 with a new interface. Extremely fiery black chariot. It no longer looked as weak as before, but it was extremely angry. Its red eyes glittering. Of course, that alone is not powerful enough to make him afraid. But it also increases his interest in wanting to change tactics to fight it. while looking at the snake in disgust. He said, "If you like it, it's okay. If you don't like it, then you're okay." Dae-sung quietly observed the movements of the dark star to see what trick it planned to do next. Suddenly its blood-red eyes flashed and it rushed straight towards him, revealing a strange light inside its mouth. Without hesitation it jumped into its mouth. He used one hand to support his jaw and the other to block under his mouth. Dae-sung grabbed the black snake's long fangs and pushed them up. Then stared at that energy. A brilliant light source is shining brightly like a large torch, sustaining the snake's life. Extremely pleased because, as he predicted, that thing was the legendary reincarnation torch. Suddenly, the snake opened its mouth as if it had swallowed him whole. Then raised its head to facilitate digestion. The system appeared with the desperate cries of the monsters in pandemonium. But the snake suddenly felt something wrong inside it and immediately spit out a bunch of sticky fluid. Falling out of that mess was one of Dae-sung's legs, seemingly dead. But the main character does not die so easily. He has returned and is more powerful than before with a glowing object. Slamming that thing into the ground, Dae-sung appeared with a large and long sword wrapped around it in a chain. Then disdainfully said that this thing really has no effect on an armless person like you. The system informed him that he had collected the Fire Din sword with a contract level of 50%. So he could not use all of its skills. Unique skills 1, 2, and 3 were still sealed. But for him that was enough to defeat that stupid reptile who couldn't use the regeneration torch anymore. His return made the snake spirit angry, making him fire his foul mouth and let out a scream full of indignation. Holding the Fire Din sword, Dae-sung excitedly thought about using it to fight the black snake. This sword contains a great power that has not yet been fully exploited. Dae-sung wielded the sword and slashed an earth-shattering Zen Sutra straight into Black Snake's head. It struggled extremely strongly, then a column of light burst out strongly, accompanied by a commotion. With just one slash, Dae-sung easily cut the snake in half and sent it to the land of bliss. At that moment, he saw a familiar system panel appear before him. It announced that the Covenant level had reached 100% because the mission was completed. Dae-sung received a reward of blood guards and 20,000 reputation points. The chains holding the sword also immediately disappeared without a trace. Holding the powerful Fire Din Gwom sword with an extremely excited mood. From now on, he can exploit its full power. But the system board shows a new message. Fire Din Gwom issues a challenge to test his Lazit level. It will only submit when he can overcome the challenge within the allotted time. That means he must pass the Hellfire challenge to have full control over the Fire Palace sword. The system started counting down 239 to 59, 47, and added that he would not die but would still suffer pain. 240 hours or 10 days of continuous burning around him, and the sword was now bursting with a huge flame. The fire burned his clothes and pants. But how could he burn his playboy spirit? There was no damn reason for him to do this challenge. His clothes and hair were now almost completely burned. Dae-sung spoke up with a powerful voice. In the snake's belly, he had turned into a dog that did not recognize its owner, and then the Fire King. But still nothing happens. The system continues to count down 239 h 54 feet 18. At the countdown sound and the fact that the fire was gradually burning his skin, Dean shouted, "While I gently stopped immediately, or I will chop you into 100 pieces." Suddenly, time immediately returned to 0. Ending the challenge, still clutching the hilt of the sword even though his hand had lost several pieces of skin. Suddenly a voice rang out from the owner. Hwa Din Gwom, now awake from his coma, immediately begged for forgiveness for not recognizing him earlier. But Dae-sung did not get angry and just gently said it had been a long time since he had seen him again. The fire lit up once and then immediately extinguished, leaving a peaceful desert area for the two of them to talk. Seeing that the Fire Lord still remained in this place, he guessed that he had not been degraded to pandemonium like the others. That place is the end of hell where the dead gather. An endless abyss covered with nothing but darkness and despair. The system appeared again with the wails of the demons pandemonium, who were imprisoned by walls of darkness begging him to come free. The Fire King also immediately lamented that since the day he died, He could only lie still and wait until he disappeared from this world. Hearing that, Dae-sung frowned and thought that he must hate him very much. But the Fire King would dare to just be his choice. I would happily obey. There was only one thing that made it extremely hateful after Dae-sung disappeared from this place. Immediately turning serious. This was exactly what he wanted to hear for a long time but had no answer. Hwa Din-gwom obediently explained the situation to him. After Dae-sung died, unknown entities broke through the walls to rush into hell, taking advantage of the demon's weakened spirit when the Lord of Hell was absent. They devastated the entire hell. The battles continued to break out, and in the end the demons failed and were exiled to Pandemonium. Fire Din-gwom could only stand and watch his comrades being beaten to death because at that moment it was swallowed by the snake spirit. Losing all faith and motivation to fight, he decided to lie still and let time pass meaninglessly. But luckily he returned and freed it from the long series of waiting days. Then it wondered why he decided to return when he had chosen to leave this place. But Dae-sung just lifted the sword and said that when the time came he would talk about it later. Being carried on the Fire King's shoulders by his master was extremely happy and his attention was on the golden ball in front of him. Not knowing what it was. However, it was as clueless as him. But it could sense an unusual source of energy from the sphere. Then it firmly confirmed that it was identical to the energy of those unidentified entities. Which made him a little interested. Seeing him reach out towards the Fire Lord's ball, he tried his best to stop it. Master. Ignoring the warnings, the system has never let him down. So it's best to just collect this. As soon as I crushed the ball, the system displayed a strange message. Received items to enter. 2/3. The ball immediately turned into a seal and entered his hand like the day he fought with the commanders. Maybe when he gets all three it will give him access somewhere. The mission was completed, so the system asked him if he wanted to leave Pantheon? Dae-sung refused immediately because there were still many other items to collect. Ignoring the bulletin board that was still on, he decided to return to Pantheon for a while. At the same time, at Bang Hun Bang's headquarters, people were excitedly discussing the video recording the Goblin Massacre scene that was on top search. Someone asked Chan-ho if he had seen it but he just said yes. After that, Chan-ho was extremely embarrassed and did not dare to say that he was his best friend. Suddenly a man wearing glasses appeared and asked team leader Sung Chan-ho, "Are you free?" Looking up at Chan-ho, he wondered if the director was looking for him to deduct his salary or something. 3 employees in Chan-ho's group were heatedly discussing the hot Goblin Massacre video online. Several local hunters are also searching everywhere for that mysterious person. Everyone was curious about that person's identity but could not find any information. A man wearing glasses and a blue suit came in to see Sung Chan-ho. Looking up, he knew it was the director but didn't understand what purpose he was looking for. However, the director just smiled mysteriously and called Chan-ho out to talk. On the rooftop of the headquarters while smoking a cigarette, the director immediately asked Chan-ho if he was present at the scene that day and couldn't collect anything. Hearing that, Chan-ho felt guilty thinking that something was wrong but this guy only cares about that. He even thought that because he thought he was a friend, he was going to apply for an extension of his license. Chan-ho then pretended to answer that if he had, "I would have given it to you," making the director's eyes shine like stars. But right after that, he expressed regret and said that if Chan-ho found something, he would definitely recruit him. Pretending like he didn't know anything, Chan-ho forced a smile. There were only 7 days left until his license expired. What was he going to do? But he hesitated and said nothing. The conversation suddenly fell into an awkward silence. To clear this atmosphere, Chan-ho had to ask one more question. "What's wrong, Shin Cho-young?" It wasn't until later that the director blandly said nothing. "I was just worried that you would overdo it. 7 days away from the license test in a certain forest. Ms. Shin Cho-young is practicing enthusiastically. The system announces that the simulation program will end within 10 minutes. A huge rock suddenly rose up right after the ending announcement ended. She immediately took advantage of the momentum and rushed straight towards it, unleashing a lightning-fast slash. Then jumped 2 steps forward and the rock broke in half after that powerful attack. Less than 2 seconds later, another rock continued to rise, causing dust to fly. Shin So-young still had his back turned to it but still felt that this time was different from the last time. One side of it suddenly dropped, revealing a D-rank purple monster standing inside. The monster immediately got out of the box and flashed straight to where Shin So-young was standing. Startled, he turned around, ready to swing his sword to fight it. But suddenly, another D-class monster appeared behind her, making her unable to react in time. The two monsters had formed a pincer position. Not to mention the one behind had bitten her shoulder. At the same time, the hand of the one in front was only a glove away from her face. In a situation where everything was hanging by a thread, a voice suddenly rang out saying it would end here. As soon as Shin So-young regained composure, that hand gradually disappeared. The training program ended. The forest simulated by stereoscopic images immediately disappeared. Uncomfortably, she turned back to where the voice came from and saw the leader of the Ice Soul Gang standing there. He looked back solemnly and told her to come up here and talk for a bit. Shin So-young's voice rang out in the laboratory. Surely I can do more than that. How could he stop in the middle of staring like that? But the leader warned her to watch out for being too late while she was resting. Let's jump right back in. Wasn't he the one who taught her to achieve everything she desires even if it's beyond her ability? Hearing that, it was a bit rude. So he frowned and brought up the issue of excessive physical training. However, Shin So-young still stubbornly believes that she understands her body and can continue to practice. With a straight face, the leader coldly asked again, more clearly than anyone else. A screen immediately appeared in front of the two people, then a chart appeared. He immediately explained that the pink color was the data of a normal nervous system and the blue color was Shin So-young's because of who measured it. When talking about actual data like this, she had no choice but to sigh. The bearded leader immediately questioned her about what she was hiding. Because according to someone's analysis, psychological disorder is a dangerous factor that hinders her development. But the king also lost to the lazy guy. She was still stubborn and refused to say anything, only saying she wanted to be in the top 5. The leader did not think that Shin So-young wanted to advance to that level. Getting into level A means money and fame will come like a storm. But, before he could finish the request, he crushed the water bottle in his hand and firmly affirmed that those things were not what she wanted. Pursing his lips tightly, eyes flashing with anger, the only thing Shin So-young wanted to do was kill all the monsters in this world. Transferred to the headquarters of the Crimson Demons the day before the license test. Gang leader Lee Soku is entering a mysterious, extremely well-protected hallway, walking forward with an expressionless face as always. He stopped in front of a certain place. It is a super large door that is extremely reinforced. After he finished scanning his fingerprint, it was immediately opened. The disgusting stench inside made him cover his nose and complain. How can you stay in an environment like this for so long? We probably need to upgrade the facilities in this quarantine area, especially the ventilation system. The lights on the legs are also blinking intermittently because they're out of power. So they all have to be replaced. Do you feel okay? Then he looked towards the corner of the room, where a person dressed in white was sitting in a pool of blood strewn with animal corpses. That man was frantically gnawing and biting something in extreme horror. Lee Soku had to call out to Jinshin before he turned his bloodied face over to look. On the floor was a mixture of fresh blood mixed with animal lungs that had been dragged out in a disgusting manner. Seeing that Lee Soku was extremely satisfied because Jinshin was eating very well, he also encouraged him to eat more and rest more to reduce the effects of the medicine. Wiping away the blood stains on his face and his eyes shining with strong murderous intent, Jinshin growled and said that I will definitely be the star in the upcoming test. In hell, 3 days before the license test, Dae-sung was still diligently doing his duty. The system board announced that he had just completed another mission and raised his contract level. He covered himself and stood on top of the snowy mountain with the Fire Din sword. It asked its owner if he wanted to go home yet. After a series of days of hard work, he decided to return to the real world. Finally, the day of the test came with the percentage of people awakening increasing by 25% compared to last year. Therefore, the competition in the first half of this year's Hunter survey is expected to be extremely high. The Hunter Association also changed the testing method from this year to accommodate the large number of participants. On the road, a Posh was rushing at high speed and then stopped at the curb. When the reporters saw this, they were as chaotic as porridge mixed with rice, frantically rushing out to take photos. Lee Soku and the handsome Jinshin appearing on the red carpet were welcomed no less than select A reporter OJ Chul from SBC Radio immediately approached for an interview, asking if the person next to him was a rookie used this year. At the same time, what prediction does he have about the Crimson Demon Gang's ranking in this exam? Suddenly another reporter chimed in and recalled the incident of the Crimson Demon Gang 2 years ago. Lee Soku was bitter because the damn reporters were asking stupid questions as soon as they set foot down. But he still maintained his industrial smile and appeared to regret the past events. While Jinshin frowned and looked over. However, the reporter did not let it go so easily, claiming that he was just avoiding responsibility. But Lee Soku suddenly placed his hand on the reporter's shoulder, smiling and promising to play nice this year. Then Lee Soku and Jinshin left coolly in the continuously flashing flashlight. Inside the stadium, the two continued to walk towards the competition preparation area. Jinshin immediately complained to Lee Soku that he should have just left those flies alone. Lee Soku suddenly stopped and scolded Jinshin, causing him to immediately laugh, hi hi ha ha, and tell him it was just a joke. He knows that Jinshin is enjoying the excitement, but don't get too excited. If it comes out that he's doing drugs, everyone will die. Suddenly, a tall, muscular man wearing a mask appeared behind the two and spoke in a loud voice. Startled, Lee Soku looked back and immediately recognized that it was director Wang Junyoung, the leader of the Ice Soul Gang. He took the opportunity to mock his appearance wearing a mask, looking exactly like a gorilla.